Hi, I'm Mr. C, the teacher, and this is my classroom. Over the years, I've created hundreds of lessons in every subject area. So grab your tools for school and join in with us. Or sit back and just watch. And let's go on a learning journey together. Because you're watching Lessons from the Classroom. Well, let's take a look at what the topic for today's episode is going to be about. In this week's episode, we're going to talk about probability in mathematics. Probability is a part of applied mathematics, which really is all about chance. The chance that something might happen or might not happen. Let's learn some more about probability. You know, I love being surrounded by great books, because one of my favorite things to do is to read stories. So, let's make some time right now and read a storybook. This is story time. Breakfast in the bathtub. I always eat breakfast. Sometimes I eat toast for breakfast. Sometimes I eat eggs for breakfast. I never eat mud pies for breakfast. I always take the bus to school. Sometimes I sit at the back. Sometimes I sit at the front. I never drive the bus. I always read at night. Sometimes I read in my chair. Sometimes I read in my bed. I never read in the bathtub. Do you eat eggs for breakfast? Do you take a school bus to school? Do you read in bed at night? Sometimes, never, always. Do you eat breakfast in the bathtub? Breakfast in the Bathtub is a storybook about probability.
Sheet lessons.
Here we have a math worksheet on probability, and it's more likely or less likely. We actually can see a sort of line of likeliness, I guess we can call it. Down at this end, we use words like impossible and never. Something would never happen, it's impossible. Here we have unlikely or not so often. You know, it might happen, but it's probably not going to. Here we have likely or often, meaning it's going to happen. And here we have certain or always. It always happens. It's impossible to not have it happen, right? So let's take a look at the events. We're going to circle the event that is more likely. They've done the first one for us. Here it is. A fish will sing, or I will sing. Well, they've circled I will sing because it's more likely that you're going to sing than a fish. Let's take a look at the next one. An ant will have antenna, or a dog will have antenna. Which one are we going to circle? The ant, of course. It's an insect. It's going to have antenna. Dogs don't. You have to take a look at these pictures very carefully, because this one says, I will be warm. And look at him. He's in his shorts and his t-shirt, no hat. It's a snowman and snow on the ground and snowflakes. I will be warm, or I will be warm. Again, he's in shorts and a t-shirt. We got a bright sun up there. There's a sandy beach. Which instance will he most likely be warm? If you're thinking this one, you're right. We'll circle this one. He's going to be warm in the summer at the beach. Here it says, it will rain in May, or it will snow in May. Which one is more likely? May is almost the summertime. Yeah, if you think this one, it will rain in May, you're right. That is more likely to happen than snow. This is a game of probability. The way it works is I need a die that has, of course, its 6 numbers on it. I've got 6 different colored circles here, and each one is in a lane. The rainbow one is in lane 1, green is lane 2, blue is lane 3, red is lane 4, yellow is lane 5, and the white is lane 6. Each time its number comes up, it gets to move 1 space. Which one will reach the finish line first? We'll roll the die and find out. Oh, number 6 comes up first. Number 6 moves 1 spot. Number 2 came up. Number 2 moves 1 spot. Number 4 came up. Number 3. Pretty even race so far. Number 5. The probability that each number comes up at least once is pretty equal. Number 2 takes the lead. Number 3. Let's keep going. Number 5. Well, even though it looked like number 1 was falling behind, it's pretty much caught up, and green is in the lead and only 1 roll away from winning the race. Green is number 2. Let's see what comes up next. Ooh, number 6. Now number 6 is tied with number 2. Number 5. Number 6. Number 6 wins the race. It hit the finish line first. That's a game of probability. The game of 3 Up is based on whether 3 coins will land 3 heads, 3 tails, or a combination. So what we do in this game is we throw all 3 coins up in the air at the same time and then see whether they land heads or tails. But before we throw the coin, we make a decision on what we think is going to come up. The possibility for them landing could be heads, heads, and heads. All 3 heads land up. So each side of the coin has 2 sides. A head side represented by the queen's head, or heads, heads, and 1 tails, or tails, tails, and tails. All 3 tails land up. And a tails side represented by the polar bear. Or tails, tails, and heads. 4 possible combinations. Which one do you think is going to come up? Let's find out. 3 up. And so what we can see in this toss is that it came up heads, heads, and heads. 3 heads came up. What are the chances the coins are going to come up 3 heads, 3 tails, 2 heads and 1 tail, or 2 tails and 1 head? So grab 3 coins and give it a try yourself. 3 up. 2 heads and a tail. All About Miss Miller. A storybook about probability. I wonder if Miss Miller will come to school today, said Asia. She wasn't feeling well yesterday. I think she'll come to school, said Dan. She never misses school. Do you think Miss Miller will wear her blue dress today? Asked Dan. Probably not, said Asia. She wore it yesterday. Do you think Miss Miller will wear her red hat today? Asked Asia. Probably, said Dan. It's cold today. Do you think Miss Miller will show us a video today? Asked Dan. Probably not, said Asia. We saw one yesterday. Do you think Miss Miller will be out at recess today? Asked Asia. Probably, said Dan. She is always out on Thursdays and Fridays. Do you think Miss Miller will play her guitar today? Asked Dan. Probably not, said Asia. She broke a string yesterday. Do you think Miss Miller will read us a story today? Asked Asia. Probably, said Dan. She reads us a story every day. Miss Miller is away today. I am Mr. Yi. Oh!
More worksheet lessons.
Okay, here we have a math worksheet as part of our theme unit on probability in math. It says always or never. Circle the events that always happen. Put an X through events that never happen. So if we take a look at the two examples, I will ride a T-Rex. Never going to happen. It will get dark tonight. Always will happen. Let's take a look at these questions. I will lift an elephant. Is that an event that always will happen or an event that will never happen? Never. We'll put an X through it. Here, it will get cold in winter. Always happens or never happens? That's pretty much an always happens. We'll circle that one. A bee will make honey. Always happen or never happen? Always happen. I will grow younger. That's going to be a never happen. I will be older next year. Always happen or never happen? Always. A cow will fly past the window. Always happens? All the time or never happens? That's a never. Cookies will grow on trees. Be nice if it did, but it's not an always, it's a never. At the very bottom it says, who won, X or O? Let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 X's, and 1, 2, 3, 4 O's, so X won. I was just looking at the weather report, and the probability of rain is at about 50%, along with a good probable chance of studying some science and mathematics as well. So I've got my lab coat on and my umbrella, and I'm heading out. Whew. When it comes to predicting weather, there are so many different variables. Clouds, temperature, wind. The mathematics that are used in predicting the weather have been said to be even harder than the math used by NASA to launch rocket ships into outer space. You can see up in this area, there's a percentage of precipitation, and they're predicting 40% here. So looking at weather reports can tell us what is the chance of it being rainy or being sunny. If they're predicting a 0% chance of rain, then there's probably no clouds in the sky, and we know we're not going to get rained on. If they're predicting 100% chance of precipitation, then we know it's probably raining right now and will continue to rain. So weather is also all about probability. The Worrywart. A story about probability. Pedro was a worrywart. He worried about almost everything. "Mom," he said, "do you think it will rain tomorrow?" "No, dear," Mom answered. "It will probably be sunny. That's what I heard on the radio." Pedro was still a bit worried. He didn't want it to rain because his family was going to the zoo. The next morning it was warm and sunny. Pedro ran to the kitchen. His family was getting ready. "Look outside," said his mom. "It's a beautiful day." Pedro frowned. "It might get too hot," he worried. "Do you think it will be too hot today?" "Probably not," said Mom. "There's a nice cool breeze." On the way to the zoo, Pedro began to worry again. "The last time I was at the zoo, the lions stayed inside," he said. "Maybe they won't be out today. Do you think they will be out today?" "Chances are they will be out," said Mom. "They like to sleep in the sun." When they got to the zoo, they checked the map. "I like to watch them feed the otters," said Pedro. "But maybe we missed it. Maybe we're too late." "Probably not," said Dad. "They don't feed the otters until 10 o'clock. We still have 10 minutes. Pedro and his family were just in time to see the otters eating. Then they went to see the polar bears. "I really want to see the polar bears swim in their pool, but what if they don't want to?" worried Pedro. "Do you think we'll get to see them in the pool?" "Probably," said Mom. "They might want to cool off on such a warm day." Mom was right. The polar bears went in the pool to cool off. Pedro and his family watched for a while, and then they went to see the gorillas. "That gorilla is a good climber," exclaimed Pedro. "What if he got out and hurt somebody?" "Chances are he can't get out," replied Dad. "The fence is very high, and there is a net across the top." Next, it was time to go and see the lions. Pedro looked up at the sky and started to worry again. "It's probably going to rain," he said. "I really think it's going to rain." "You are such a worrywart," said Mom. "Look at the sunshine." "Yes," said Pedro, "but..." Mom looked at Pedro. "Did you make it rain with all your worrying?" she asked. "Probably," said Pedro.
More worksheet lessons.
And we have a worksheet here on probability in math. It says describing events. Use the best word to describe the event. And they've written them for us along the top. Impossible. It's never going to happen. Unlikely. Could, but it's probably not. Likely. Yeah, it might very well happen for sure. And certain. Absolutely going to happen. There's no doubt about it. We have to write those words on the lines underneath here. Let's look at each little story and decide if it's impossible, unlikely, likely, or certain. I will brush my teeth in the morning. Which one would that be? Impossible, unlikely, likely, or certain? That one's going to be likely. And I can copy that answer right from the word up above. Next one says, I will be in grade 2 next year. Well, if you're in grade 1, that's going to be likely. I will lose a tooth this week. Think that's impossible? Unlikely, likely, or certain? That one's going to be unlikely. Might happen, but, probably won't. Here's the next one. A pink tiger will come to school. Impossible, unlikely, likely, or certain? I think we have to say that one is impossible. It's a big long word, but we've got it up at the top of the page so we can copy it out. Next one says, I will have a birthday every year. Is that impossible, unlikely, likely, or certain? We'd have to say that is certain. Everybody has a birthday once a year. It's certain. This one says, the next apple I eat will be green. Is that impossible, unlikely, likely, or certain? I usually see mainly red apples, so it's probably going to be unlikely, but it might happen. On the bottom row it says, I will go to school in September. Is that impossible, unlikely, likely, or certain? Could be just likely for some people, especially if you plan to be on holiday longer. But for most kids, it's pretty much certain. School always starts in September. Certain. Some places in the world, school starts at different times, though. All right, here we go. This one says, I will win the contest on the cereal box. Is it impossible to win it? Unlikely, likely, or certain? That one's going to be probably unlikely. Every kid is hoping to win that contest. Thousands of kids. Only one might win, so it's unlikely. This next one says, I will have a chipmunk for a brother. Oh, that would be great. But I think that's probably going to be impossible. There's no chance I'm ever going to have a chipmunk for a brother. Unless I was a chipmunk myself.
All right, it's time in our episode for this segment that I like to call the Did You Know Fun Facts.
Did you know?
This interesting fact is weird but true. We call it the birthday paradox. If you get a group of 23 people in the same room, let's say like the size of a class, there's a 50% chance that 2 people are going to have the exact same birthday. So that means about once every 2 or 3 years, I'm going to have 2 kids in my class who celebrate the same birthday. Sometimes we come just within 1 day apart, but weird. 23 people is all it takes for a 50% chance of having the same birthday when there's 365 days to choose from. Weird. A lot of people talk about the fear of getting struck by lightning. But did you know that the chance of actually being struck by lightning is only 1 in 1 million? And even if you did get struck by lightning, most people actually survive. In fact, there's about a 90% chance of surviving getting struck by lightning.
Oh man, some people have all the fun.
Did you know that according to probability, if you play the game Hangman, the most difficult word is the word jazz, J-A-Z-Z. It's made up of 75% of letters that are rarely ever guessed or used in the English language. Who thought a 4-letter word like jazz is the most difficult word in Hangman, according to probability? Cool.
Now you know. More worksheet lessons.
This is a worksheet on probability for our math theme unit. It's called likely or unlikely. Some events happen often, but not always. I go to school in the morning, for example. Some events happen not so often. I will have ice cream for breakfast. So in the often, going to school in the morning, that happens most days unless I'm sick or it's a Saturday or a Sunday or a holiday. And ice cream for breakfast, although it's not impossible, I really can't remember the last time that ever happened. So down here it says, circle the correct words. I will eat lunch. Often or not so often. So they've done the first one for us and they've circled often. We eat lunch pretty much every day. Here's the next question. It will snow in the month of May. Often or not so often? Not so often. I will win a raffle. I'll be the winner. Often or not so often? Not so often. Wish it were true, but that I'd win all the time, but it doesn't. There will be a big earthquake. Often or not so often? Not so often. Thank goodness for that. It will rain in April. Often? Not so often. Guess depends where you live, but here where we live in Canada, that's often. A 5-year-old will be taller than a 6-year-old. Often or not so often? Does happen sometimes, it's possible, but usually the older you are, the taller you are until you get to be an adult. So we're going to circle not so often.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's show on probability. Oh. Hey, what do you think the probability or chance is that this vegetarian sandwich belongs to a giant garden snail? Probably impossible. Is this sandwich yours?
No.
No, it's not his. What do you think the probability or the chances are that Mr. C is going to eat all of the sandwich? I'd say pretty certain. That was good.
Has anybody seen my sandwich?
Uh-oh. What do you think the chances are that that sandwich belonged to our narrator guy? Come out of here. See you next time. Well, thanks for joining me, and I hope you learned something new and had fun doing the lessons. Join me next time on another episode of Lessons from the Classroom.